Uh, Good morning, everyone. So, actually, the question is not difficult for me to share, but I still need PowerPoint in order uh, to make explaining in order. Yeah. The first one is asking about the how I actually involved in the social legal in the very beginning of my uh, studies. Yeah, in at law schools especially. Uh, of course, given the context of Indonesia's really plural legal systems, and also very complex, and therefore, what I found is so far, informal justice system is really important or significant for the society at ground, and because of my experiences before entering the university as a lecturer, I involved in the Indonesian Legal Aid Foundations. This is special organizations for defending poor communities at ground, and also working as they define themselves as structural legal aid strategies. So that's why the the experience during my work at LBH or Indonesian Legal Aid Foundations actually is closely to the real situation what happened with the law in action, the law in applicability, or the law in social realities. And therefore, structural impoverishment and also its social economic injustices become close to my concern in that situations. And then, uh, however, when I entered the law schools, it was 25 years ago. It's really different life, yeah, compared to my LBH works, yeah. Why? Because in the context of law schools in Indonesia, it really has been dominantly applying not social legal, not interdisciplinary, but it's more legal formalism. What I call is legal formalisms. Doctrinal is also dominant, but I would say it's more legal formalisms. And quite shockingly, many students cannot write uh, innovatively using other disciplines except uh, he or she can use the law as as a key analysis for a particular legal case. And I've tried to understand these situations by doing research on social legal research. So researching what the researching those who are teaching on research methodology at law schools, and we interviewed 144 lecturers throughout Indonesia. Together with, not only me, together with Widodo Dwi Putro, a lecturer from Mataram University, and one of the conclusion for that research is actually they use research methodology like religion, if not normative juridics, and the other is empirical studies. It's like religion. So that's why in the law schools, mostly they introduce only two, normative or empirical. So that's all. Nothing innovative methodology in beside that. And then uh, as I mentioned, that dominant at law schools is really divided into normative juridical and empirical juridical approaches. And the problem with that is, of course, it will be significant obstacles for developing interdisciplinary approaches to law, and that span or go beyond the divide. Mostly students as well as the academics actually using outdated and limited source materials, and even there's a very limited research budget in doing research at field or at ground, and at the same time, this is also has been influenced by social structure of feudalism at the campus, introducing conservatism perspective, legal scholars, and while at the same time they want to have sort of like internationalization, quote unquote, yeah, legal educations, which is market friendly legal education for professional jurists. What I call is it's more reductionism or legal formalisms. And hence, also a question from Melissa. What does sociolegal mean to me? It's simply because of this method actually try to seek try to seek what happened with the law in realities, or to examine law in action and how the legal system actually operates at particular situations. And the aim of that research method actually to provide possible answers any legal gap happen at ground. And of course, understanding the law and its application have been shaped by multiple actors and factors and also interests. Uh, of course, by employing an interdisciplinary approach may also be necessary as is taking advantage the relative strengths of more comprehensive approaches compared to the legal formalism, of course, including when the students or academics using comparative law studies. And this is my additional points that might be necessary uh, to reflect what we have done so far. Actually, in order to promote sociolegal is also uneasy situations at law schools due to marginalizing situations, marginalize us, bringing the NGO styles in the campus, or sort of like many stigmatization NGO styles, like Prabowo accusing anti-asing, yeah, foreigner and so on. But this is also happened during uh, perhaps 2 decades ago, around 2 decades ago, and therefore, among lecturers who really intend to develop legal research in Indonesia, we try to establish AFHI, Indonesian Association for Legal Philosophy. That was the initial process in bringing the message of sociolegal before ASLESI. Also facilitated by numbers of non-governmental organizations. It was in 2011. And then after that, among us in the AFI, we also built the collaborative and multidiscipline research for supporting advocacy. For instance, like in the picture, we done it in Kendeng, that is in Pati and Rembang, 2 districts in Central Java. We have kuliah bersama rakyat or lecturing with the people. Also, because of that organization, we also develop social legal teaching at law schools throughout Indonesia. Because of that, it enables me to travel more than 10 or 15 even law schools in Indonesia to teach about social legal. So that will be impossible just at my faculty, because at my faculty at that time it's really strictly prohibit introducing social legal. It was happen, but now it's different. Yeah, now it's changed. And also developing curriculum on social legal research, and also its training programs through AFHI, through philosophy associations. And then later on become stronger due to many response or really want to have collaboration. One of them I can mention is SLAY. We call it SLAY's approach, strengthening legal education for Eastern Indonesia, which is also introducing law in context, which means that social legal can be applicable or developed in these numbers of universities in Indonesia. Uh, this picture actually um, to reflect the interest of sociolegal by attending AFI conference, because during the initial years of AFI establishment, we have annual and also now is biannual conferences of sociolegal. Uh, the last one, I just want to show that research and activism now is really growing concern in various part of Indonesian law schools, including at my research center, by bringing the message of the importance of law schools to touch the issue of social injustices, such as this this picture actually reflecting how the students are also involved at ground from time to time in order to reflect what happened with the society when they really a far distance with what you have learned from the campus. So that's the initial process of sociolegal. Oh yeah, this one.
Fantastic, thank you. So we'll come now to Associate Professor Fachrizal Afandi. So you have been involved closely with the founding of ASLESI, which is the more recent organisation founded on sociolegal studies in Indonesia. So I want to invite you to tell us a bit about that organisation, why it was formed and how it was established, and its role and function. And then perhaps a bit also about your own work in criminal justice and how you see that contributing to sociolegal studies.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. I just continue and at some point that Mas Herlambang previous explanation. Actually, as I see the Indonesian Association for Sociological Studies, I co-founded with other colleagues and senior lecturers in Indonesia since 2012. It was there was a building block on sociolegal, one of the building block program held by the Leiden University at the time and Universitas Indonesia, and also my university in Brawijaya University also co-hosted that workshop. In 2012, we tried to, we have a training at the time for 20 lecturers from around Indonesia, from Aceh until Papua. And from that forum, we agreed to establish the teamwork, teamwork for, a chat working group. We as alumni of this building block agreed to establish the working group for ASLESI. But the ASLESI formally established in 2021 when I graduated from Leiden University with Mas Herlambang, Mas Yance, Bu Sulis, and other sociological scholars in Indonesia. And also we invite you at the time during COVID time. We launched this association online, and since then we try to promote more formally and build the network more broadly to Indonesia. And we've got support from the Dutch embassy to initiate the workshop. We call it a track. What is that? The advanced training for sociological training. Trainer for trainers, yeah. And one of the alumni is Priska here. And we had 20 participants at the time, and we asked them, each participants, to have training in their universities. So one of the their responsibility, because we funded them to come to Malang and buy everything. So we asked them to teach the social training for to their campuses, to their colleagues, on how teach and conduct research on sociological. So, and we also, you can find the ASLESI's website. I think it's still on until today, ASLESI's website. During my chairmanship, we had maybe 150 members. Last year, I was succeeded by Mas Yance. He is the new chairperson now, and I think the member is bigger than before. And yeah, my info actually in sociological. Can I also go?
Yes,
Okay.
let's talk a bit about the criminal law.
Yeah.
You've been instrumental in criminal justice
Yeah.
networks and
Yeah.
research and teaching.
Okay. Yeah, because my network in sociological studies, so I try to promote also in my network in criminal law scholarship. It's not easy to convince them to, do conduct research empirically, because most of the criminal law lecturers or criminal law lawyers prefer to, analyze criminal law as normative. It's quite not easy, but I established after I, passed the chairmanship to Mas Yance, I also established the Association for Criminal Law and Criminology Lecturers. We call it ASPERHUPIKI. You can also find the website, asperhupiki.id. Now we had 500 members around Indonesia, payment membership, so they can access training. And we had been involved in criminal code and criminal procedure drafting, becoming one of the debate partners of the government. It's like head love relationship between Asperhupiki and government. uh, yeah, and yeah, because I have also bachelor in psychology, so when I started my lecturing in 2008, I tried to find a way to collaborate these two majors. Before I became lecturer, I also practicing lawyer. I'm so I'm always curious how the law used by the people. I assume that the law is like a gun, and I want to know the behavior, the man's behavior behind the gun. So yeah, I'm so happy when I was involved as a participant in the 2012. I think the trainings for junior lecturers is very important, uh, because we can give hope to them. In my experience, most of the reformers, legal reformers are sociological scholars, and they already know about sociological scholars since they're junior lecturers. It's not easy to train the senior one, So we prefer to invest to the junior one, and yeah, we have also initiated the journals, international journals on sociological studies. In 2022, at the time, we collaborate with UI, Universitas Indonesia. UI initiated to publish the Indonesian Journal for Sociological Studies, IGSLS. And as part of ASLC, we support the journal. So please, if you have any good articles, you can also submit to our journals. And 2 weeks ago, Astronomy also launched the new journal on the Asian Journal for Criminal Law and Criminal Justice. So this is quite new. The sociological one is already, because in Indonesia we we put scopus in the first and the substantial in the second. the Scopus indexed journal is very important to Indonesian lecturers rather than its substance. So the Indonesian IGSLS already indexed by Scopus, but the criminal and criminal justice one is not yet. But I think the why sociolegal is flourish in the last 20 years. I think I wrote also in one of my article. I assume that it because one of the causes is about because the reform era. I found that during New Order, the academic freedom was limited. Also in the law school, so it's it's easier to control the legal thinking with the normative way. So do not conduct research on empirical. If you conduct research on empirical, you will know about the fact. So just discuss about the normative one. In 1980s, if I'm not mistaken, the 1980s or 1970s, there was a prominent thesis written by Adnan Buyung Nasution. He wrote a PhD thesis on sociological perspective on the lawmaking process of the Indonesian Constitution during 1950s. And after he published his dissertation at that time, the Pangkom Kamtip, the commander of army, sent letters to all universities to restrict discussion about this dissertation. So the sociological is at the time is I think it's very dangerous. So that's why it's also explain why life faculty, reject this kind of research method. We can also discuss later. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we'll come now to Dr. Yance Arizona, who, as was mentioned, is the current chair. So tell us a bit about what you hope to do as chair with SLSE, and perhaps also more broadly about some of your research on Indigenous rights and how that contributes to sociolegal studies.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I prepared this presentation as really also part of the current research that I'm conducting with Indonesia for a chapter on trans-regional histories of sociological studies. So to see that the development of sociological studies in Indonesia also get much influence from the development of the global discourse on sociological studies as well. But before that, I will begin my first encounter with sociological studies, as well as my first encounter with Mbak Tirta. 19 years ago, when Faculty of Law University Indonesia organized training together with Leiden University, a series of training on sociological studies at the time. So that is also an initial network that we have now at SLSE. But before that, I think that it's quite important to see that the development of sociological studies in Indonesia from the key actors, the network, especially international legal education cooperation, and also the trans-regional network that we established at SLSE, and also try to connect this sociological research and academia together with the activisms. So this is the three main figures basically when we talk about the earliest sociological scholars in Indonesia. The first is Professor Sutandio Subroto from Herlambang University, and Professor Sachipto Raharjo, and also Tapi Omasi Hiromi in University of Indonesia. Three of them has an experience learning about sociological studies from law and society. Yeah, because three of them has experience study in the US. Pak Tandio get a Master of Public Administration at the Michigan University. In 1973, he participated in a training in Sri Lanka. It's organized by Marga Institute. There's training about social theory and method. And the second, Sachipto Raharjo, known as a founder of progressive law. He never get formal education in US, but once he get training at Chicago Law School in 1973, about law and society training was organized by maybe about LSA, because LSA at the time was established 1960s, so early LSA as well. And the third is Tapi Omasih Romi, is founder of Anthropology of Law Studies in Indonesia from Universitas of Indonesia, get MA from Cornell University. So three of them inspired us. Also an UI, also Mas Herlambang closely worked with Pak Tandio, me as well. And maybe few of them closely work with Pak Chip, but he also inspired many sociological scholars as well. So Pak Chip Toraharjo and Tapi Omasih Romi even wrote an article published in Law and Society Review, a journal managed by Law and Society Association 1994. It's quite I think after that, I tried to find none of Indonesian haven't other articles published in those very prestigious journal. That's quite challenging to ask. So, and also that Pak Tandio and also Pak Chip, so they are also involved in Komnas HAM, National Commission of Human Rights in Indonesia since 1993. So the first Komnas HAM established in Indonesia is Pak Tandio and Pak Chip involved in this process as well. So that is the first aspect to see the development of the. Now we still refer to those three persons when we discuss about sociological studies in Indonesia. The second thing, quite important, is the international legal cooperation between Indonesia, particularly with Netherlands. There are many projects, including building on the rule of law, series of activities under this project. And there is also project managed by Van Vollenhoven Institute in Leiden called INSELA about environmental law. There's also Indira project about land and the rule of law at the time. There is also Jarak project. There is also a track, as mentioned by Mas Fachrizal. There's also SLE, yes, Strengthening Legal Education in Indonesia. So this kind of international legal education cooperation also become important element of learning and also developing of sociological studies in Indonesia. And it add with the new scholarship education provided by Indonesian government. So allow many Indonesian scholars to study abroad, including at UNSW as well. So this is also particular element that support the ecosystem and also the spreading of network about sociological studies in Indonesia. There is also some cooperation between Indonesia, Australia, Netherlands, and Japan. ING conference, or 3 times conference. The first was at UGM, and after that at Universitas in Indonesia, and the third one was online at the time during the COVID period. So this is trying to build a network between Indonesia, Netherlands, Australia, especially with Elisa, and Japan with Yuzuru Shimada. But it also this is like a network, a global network. And there is also in Spain basically an Onyati, because many Indonesian scholars also have an experience study at Onyati. Around 20 of Indonesian scholars now has experience study master program at Onyati in Spain. So the next is about ASLESI, has been told by Mas Fachrizal, so I'll be quick in this context. So currently, the member of ASLESI 219 members, active members of ASLESI, the Indonesian Sociolegal Studies Associations, consists of researchers, activists, scholars, academic scholars, and also including students. So this is the distribution of members. Still, that many of them, because the last conference that we held in Yogyakarta, many participants from Yogyakarta attend the conference at the time, so they have become members of ASLESI as well. So that's why from Yogyakarta is the biggest number of members of ASLESI. But we see that there are
spread out across Indonesia. It's not concentrated into a particular province, but from Aceh until Ternate. Activities, training we conduct. Journal has been told by Mas Fachrizal. It is organized by Mbak Tirta and the college in University of Indonesia. Currently is Scopus, quarter 2. It's quite important as well. And we also organize, like under my chairmanship, and we organize some event, including critical legal studies school training we organize, and also webinar about how to do sociolegal research. And currently we like to begin to support working with NGOs, especially Indigenous Peoples Alliance, when they are now currently advocating about the law on indigenous peoples. So we will begin the series of discussion with them. 11 series of discussion will be begun next week to discuss content of the bill that currently discussed in the parliament, how we can contribute substantially to the process of lawmaking process as well. Okay, so beyond of the academia, there is also NGOs working on this in these activities, as Mas Herlambang mentioned, YLBHI, and there is also HUMA, Perkumpulan HUMA. I was part of HUMA, part of this association, and also Epistema Institute. And because after I complete my undergraduate degree, I joined NGO first before entering academia. So I have an experience 10 years working with NGOs. And we also promote sociolegal studies through NGOs. As for instance, that we publish series, Indonesian Sociolegal Studies series of publication. When I was working with NGOs, this is how many is that? 7, yeah? 7 series has been published, series Sociolegal Indonesia. I was the secretary of the editorial board of this publication at the time. It was published since 2010 until before I start my PhD. So after that, it is not continue. But now we're trying to recontinue the initiative. And yeah, so when we speak about sociolegal in Indonesia, this is, I mean, like the ecosystem of sociolegal studies. Yeah? So it is not only ASLESI as one single organization, but there are also linked with others, including, as Mas Herlambang mentioned, Association of Indonesian Legal Philosophy. That's quite important. The Constitutional and Administrative Law Society, I and also Mas Herlambang part of that as well. We quite active in challenging, make a petition to the Constitutional Court as well, report if the problem with the Constitutional Court justice. And Aspect Rupiki, as Mas Fachrizal also mentioned, there is also KIKA. I think that is also connected with our activities at the Caucus for Indonesian Freedom, academic freedom. Yeah? So it is supported with many research center in the university level, like Prasada in UB, and there is also in the Sociolegal Studies Research Center at Brawijaya University, LSG, Law and Social Justice. I'm also chair one research center at the faculty. So this is support, and also closely working with NGO. So think that to conclude that when we speak about the development of sociolegal studies in Indonesia, first we need to rethink the role of the key actors, founders that contribute to this field in Indonesia. And the second is about to see the influence of transregional network activities. It's not only located in Indonesia, but also their discussion with what sociolegal studies development in the US, in the Netherlands, Spain, also Japan. The third is about the close work between academia and activism become central element. I think that we can learn from the development of sociolegal studies in Indonesia. So that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and what comes across very strongly is not only that connection between scholarship and activism, but also, yes, the connection to trans-regional networks and the way in which it's both help train, but then help empower a new generation to train others. So you've talked quite a bit about the Netherlands, but also mentioned a bit about Australia. So given that we're based here in Australia at the moment, I've invited Dr. Elisabeth Kramer to join us. And Liz is someone who is based in the social sciences, but frequently collaborates with people in Indonesia as well as writing her own work. So I wondered if I could invite you, Liz, to say a bit about your own career and disciplinary commitments and some of the ways in which you collaborate with Indonesian scholars.
I feel like there might be a little bit of a tone shift because I don't have a formal presentation. But thanks, Melissa, and thanks to everybody who's spoken already. I'm going to, oh, you can't see me. Here I am. Hello. Hello, video. Can you see me now? Yeah. So the question was about my career, how I ended up where I am. But before that, I'd just like to say that I feel like even though I don't have a law background, I feel like I might be an honorary sociolegal scholar, if that's allowed. I don't know who I apply to for that title. My research career, or I guess my PhD, I didn't start until about 8 years after I finished my undergraduate degree. I worked for the Australian government for a few years, and then as an international development consultant. And I think during that time, I started to realize that there was a very big disconnect between the decisions that are made by governments or funders or donors in, every setting, and what is actually experienced by people and individuals when they try to access services or when they have aspirations about, their communities or the world around them being improved, and it's just not happening. So I guess that's a fundamental kind of lens that I bring to my research, and through that, I guess I've found that I do need to actually engage with the law and look at the laws that have been created and look at the government structures that are existing around certain issues in order to really understand what is going on. And so I did my PhD research on corruption in Indonesia, and I was really interested in how, I kind of came at it from the perspective that nobody goes into politics wanting to spend a lot of money, but they do. When political candidates run, the data that existed at the time showed that they spent a lot of money on trying to convince people to vote for them, either through campaigns or through direct cash transfers or whatever they do. And I was like, that doesn't sound like a choice that somebody would make, especially given the fact that they might not win after doing all of that. So I really wanted to understand what the decision-making process is there. And there are a lot of laws that actually structure the decisions or constrain the decisions that people can make. So, for example, laws about who is eligible to run for parliament. You have to be a member of a political party. In Australia, it's a bit different. You can run as an independent, and you may not have the backing of a party or a massa or something like that, but it is possible. In Indonesia, that is not possible. So you find people aligning with parties that maybe they don't have a particularly strong affinity with, or they choose the party that they think is going to help them win, not because they necessarily support the leader or, whatever. So, that's just one example of the way that the law actually constrains the decisions that individuals can make. And there are a lot of flow-on effects from those decisions, right? So, that's how we end up with the situation that exists in Indonesia today, where campaigns are really expensive, they're very hotly contested, and the individuals that are making those decisions, I think, maybe I'm being a little bit generous, but I think that they are put under immense pressure to make those decisions, and there is a cost-benefit calculation that's being made. That is essentially a direct result of the way that the laws have been created and the ways that they're implemented. So, yeah, that's kind of my approach. And since that particular project, I've moved on to other less controversial topics like the death penalty and tobacco control and tobacco politics in Indonesia. And yeah, I mean, depending on the topic, it does require like maybe a little bit of repositioning in terms of who I am, how controversial the topic is, how free my collaborators are in Indonesia to speak on certain topics, which kind of guides how a collaboration might work. But I think that, because the second question was about collaboration, right? Okay, collaborating with, I mean, anybody, but I guess specifically from my experience in Indonesia. Firstly, I think you have to be friends. You have to be friends with the people that you work with. And I say that because I have had experiences of trying to apply for grants with people who I don't know very well. And it hasn't really worked out the way that I would have hoped. So I think, well, maybe not friends, perhaps that's too strong. But you have to have like a sense of compatibility, I guess, with somebody. And how you build that really depends. The person who I'm working with quite closely at the moment in Indonesia is an economist at UI. And I met him at a conference. I sat next to him at the dinner and hadn't met him before. We just started talking. It turned out that he was interested in tobacco control as well. And then, you know, it was a really kind of organic relationship that developed into applying for grants together, co-authoring papers together, planning research together. And I think that is the ideal way to do it. I know that maybe people don't, not everybody has the opportunity to travel to conferences and have those kind of organic encounters, but that's, for me, I think having that relationship first or having that encounter first was really helpful. But also, like, there's a lot of power dynamics that go into relationships, academic relationships, regardless of who they're with. But I think particularly in Indonesia, where, I mean, I don't want to necessarily speak on behalf of Indonesian colleagues, but I feel like the academic system there puts a lot of pressure on people to do a lot of work in a very limited amount of time. And, you know, it's the same in Australia, but I think the pressures are a little bit different. I mean, I remember I had a colleague who came to do a visiting fellowship here when I was at the University of Sydney, and he was telling me that his department had to submit one article to a Q1 journal every semester while teaching 20 hours a week and doing all of his, you know, community service and all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the pressure that Indonesian collaborators are under is huge. And so I think that when working together and collaborating, there are all of these kinds of things that you need to take into account, like time, and are they actually being paid to do research? That's another factor. Some people are not. So, you know, in essence, when you're entering into a collaboration with them, they are working for free. Whereas, like, in my situation, I'm getting paid. So there are like all kinds of those things that you know, you need to take into account, and also the power dynamics of, you know, the pressure to publish in Q1 journals, which are often in English, you know, the language of academic hegemony. And so there's already a barrier there if your English is not perfect to even, you know, get through the desk review to being reviewed. And so, you know, I think when considering how to work with people, where you can add value, what's going to work for people in their context. There are all kinds of things that you need to take into account. And I would say, like, there's not one size fits all for these collaborations, but trying to, come to it with empathy, thinking about what you can add, what they can add. And I say all of this because I think there is this very clear kind of assumption, negative assumption, that when foreign researchers go into another setting, they are the brains of the operation, and the local researchers are the people who go out and collect the data. And that, I think, can be bad if managed poorly and is not thoroughly talked about in terms of who's responsible for what, but also not the brains part, that's not necessarily true. But I think, like, in Indonesia especially, there are a lot of limitations on what foreign researchers can do there. It's not that easy for me to legally, to legally go out and collect data. There are a lot of restrictions from the government. I don't want to get in trouble, and it's much easier for local collaborators to undertake that kind of work. So I think that discussing those things, being really clear about who's doing what, and how that relationship is going to actually form the project, form the outcomes, is really important. I feel like I was rambling. But yeah. And like, I think I have had very successful collaborations. So I back myself when I say these things. And I've got hopefully next week coming out a paper in the conversation, co-authored with a bunch of people, but including Asmin Francisca from Brawijaya University, where we've been doing research on access to pain medication for patients in Indonesia, particularly opioids, strong pain medication. And the project has been super, I would say, collaborative. We've got people from Erlangga, Udayana, Hasanuddin, and Brawijaya on the project, and each sort of city lead has been able to sort of craft the project within their own local area, and we're hoping to have like individual papers come out of each of those areas that will be led by the teams there. But the advocacy part of it, because the law on drugs, the law on narcotics is currently being debated for a revision in Indonesia, and a lot of the focus we've observed is on criminality. So drugs as, how do we limit drugs? How do we make sure that, they don't get onto the black market? How do we make sure that they don't, lead to increased addiction rates and all of that kind of stuff? But in that discourse, we've noticed that, there are actually people who need drugs and the drugs are legal. And those legal drugs are also being constrained by assumptions about criminality, including very, very strong painkillers. And so as part of that piece, like Asmin is hoping to take that to the DPR in their next consultation as a kind of activism, advocacy piece, to kind of say, we've done this study. We found that the vast majority of healthcare professionals are not engaged in illegal activities. They're not selling drugs onto the black market. They're not, over-prescribing to patients such that they become addicted. And, please don't conflate the issue of criminality and people doing the wrong thing knowingly with healthcare professionals being able to provide the drugs that patients need to their patients, and to kind of like make it very clear that you're focusing on this, the illegal stuff. We also need to focus on the legal stuff, on people who, lives would really benefit from having access to those painkillers. So I think like the kind of question of collaboration and advocacy also is something to, yeah, like really kind of consider with the socio-legal approach, because it's not just, you know, the combination of, you know, the law and what's social, but like, what do you do with that knowledge? Like, why are you doing this research and what do you hope to achieve from it? And I think advocacy for policy change or changes to the law is a really good motivation and can be a good basis for, you know, bringing together collaborators. Okay, I have ranted enough.
Thank you, Liz. Opened up a lot of possibilities for discussion. You know, I think we've heard of both the great sort of energy and initiative behind some of the pioneers of sociolegal studies in Indonesia, the institution building efforts of colleagues here, the way in which global networks can help to support and enable that, as well as the fact that sociolegal studies has very much gone from something that was effectively banned and prohibited and dangerous and marginalized to something perhaps that is slowly becoming more accepted within law schools in Indonesia. But that struggle is very much ongoing, as is, of course, the struggles for various law reform and social justice projects, which, of course, many of our colleagues here are connected to. So would you join me in thanking our speakers for today?